Stand at the edge of the water. Not a pool, not a lake where you can see the far shore. The open sea where the water and the sky just blur together into one grey line. Now, take away the boat behind you. Take away the radio, the engine, the life jacket folded under the seat. Take away the satellite somewhere above you that knows exactly where you are. Take away the word ocean itself, because no one has invented it yet. All you have is your own body, something that floats and a question with no answer. Is there anything out there at all? You have never seen the other side because as far as anyone in your world knows, there is no other side. No story passed down at the fire about someone who crossed and came back. No rumor of land beyond the horizon. Just water going on and on until your eyes give up before it does. And somehow, 60,000 years ago, a group of humans looked at exactly that and decided to find out anyway. No metal, no maps, no written word anywhere on Earth yet. No way to call for help if it went wrong. They paddled into nothing and some of them never came back. But enough of them did. Because today there is a continent on the other side of that water that should not have any humans on it at all. And yet it does. Nobody alive at the time could have known that. And nobody today can fully explain how they pulled it off. Welcome back to the strange past. Today we return to a world before maps, before metal, and before the other side of the sea had a name. Go back, not to ships with sails, not to maps with names on them, not to compasses or stars charted into neat little patterns. Go further, before anyone had a word for ocean, before anyone had a word for horizon. Imagine a group of humans somewhere in Southeast Asia. The land beneath their feet is enormous, thick forest, rivers, mountains in the distance. This land has a name today. Scientists call it Sunda. But to the people standing on it, it was simply the world. All of it. Everything they had ever known, everything their parents had ever known, fit inside this single stretch of land. Because 60,000 years ago, the planet was locked in an ice age. Enormous amounts of water were frozen into ice at the poles. And that meant something strange. The sea was lower, much lower. Land that is underwater today was open ground back then. What is now a scattering of islands across Southeast Asia was once mostly joined into one continuous landmass. You could walk for weeks and never see open water. This is the part modern life makes almost impossible to feel. A world with no idea of what a continent even was. No idea that anything existed beyond the next river, the next mountain, the next stretch of forest. You ate what the forest gave you. Wild seeds, roots, fruit. And the evidence shows something surprising. These people were not just grabbing whatever they found. They were grinding seeds with stone tools, processing plants that would have been useless, even dangerous, eaten raw. That is not desperation. That is knowledge passed down so carefully, it survived for tens of thousands of years. But there is a problem. At the eastern edge of this land, the world starts to break apart. The solid ground dissolves into thousands of islands, separated by channels of water. Some channels are narrow enough to swim, others are not. This stretch of broken land and water is called Wallacea today, more than 1,000 kilometers of islands, currents and gaps. And beyond Wallacea, completely unknown, never seen, never spoken of in any story passed down by any fire, is a place that does not exist yet, not to them. A massive landmass that scientists now call Sahul, what we now know as Australia and New Guinea, joined together by that same lower sea into one enormous unknown world. No one on the western side had ever heard of it. There were no legends about land across the water. No old story about someone who crossed and came back. As far as anyone knew, the world simply ended somewhere out there in the grey water. And still, something pushed them toward it. Now imagine the exact moment. You are standing at the edge of land you have always known. In front of you, water stretches out until your eyes cannot follow it anymore. No shape on the horizon, no smoke from a distant fire, no birds flying towards something solid. You have never seen anything like this. Everything inside you says that this is where the world stops. And somewhere in your group, someone has decided to go anyway. What did they build to cross it? Here is where the evidence has to admit something uncomfortable. We do not know. No boat from that time has survived. No raft, no canoe, wood rots, bamboo rots. Whatever carried them into the water disappeared from the earth tens of thousands of years ago. What we have is not the boat. It is the proof that somehow they arrived. In northern Australia, there is a rock shelter called Madjedbebe. Inside it, archaeologists found thousands of stone tools, axes with polished ground edges, grinding stones, ground ochre, the kind used for pigment. To find out how old these layers were, scientists used a method based on light trapped inside grains of sand. When sand is buried and cut off from sunlight, it slowly stores energy from the natural radiation around it, like a battery charging in the dark. In the lab, that stored energy can be released as light, and the amount released tells you how long the sand has been buried. The result placed human activity at Madjedbebe at around 65,000 years ago. That is not a small detail. That is one of the oldest known traces of humans anywhere outside of Africa and the Middle East. And to get there, on a continent that had no land bridge from the west, those people had to cross open water. There is no other way in. But here is where the story gets stranger. For years, two completely different kinds of science gave two different answers. Archaeology, based on tools in the ground, pointed to around 65,000 years. Genetics, based on DNA passed down through thousands of generations, pointed to something more recent, closer to 50,000 years. Two sciences, two timelines. For decades, no one could fully explain the gap. Then a recent study analyzing thousands of genetic samples from indigenous Australians and Papua New Guineans finally aligned both timelines. The conclusion? People began settling in northern Australia around 60,000 years ago, arriving by two separate routes. Two routes, not one lucky group, drifting once and surviving. Two independent journeys separated by enormous distances of coastline. This was not an accident that happened once. It happened, at minimum, twice. Knowing when they arrived is one thing. Knowing how they crossed water with no boats we have ever found, no metal, no instruments, nothing but their own bodies and whatever they built with their hands, that is a different question entirely. And it is the question that still does not have a clean answer. There are three main explanations, and each one has a problem. The first explanation is the simplest. It was an accident, a storm, a flooded river carrying people out to sea, people caught in a current with no intention of going anywhere, simply surviving until they touched land by pure chance. It is an appealing idea, because it does not require imagining any advanced technology. Force, not intention. But there is a serious problem. Researchers ran ocean drift simulations, modeling thousands of possible accidental crossings using real current and wind data. The result was clear.
If you're enjoying this journey, leave a like.
The chance of accidentally drifting from the Western Islands all the way to Sahul was below 5%, and only if large groups of people were swept out to sea repeatedly, again and again, for generations. That is not a single unlucky afternoon. That would require a disaster happening over and over for hundreds of years without ever stopping. And there is something else that breaks this theory even further. If accidental drifting really worked, you would expect older human species to have made it across too. Homo erectus and other ancient relatives lived in this region for over 1 million years. They had that long, repeatedly, with currents and storms exactly like the ones modern humans faced. None of them ever crossed, not once. In over 1 million years of opportunity, no earlier human species ever reached Sahul. Only we did. Only Homo sapiens. That single fact changes everything. If it was just luck, why only us? The second explanation is harder to prove and far more unsettling. Deliberate navigation. The same researchers who ruled out pure accident found something important. If people chose a strategic moment to leave and held a steady direction instead of drifting wherever the current pulled them, the odds of success rose sharply. You did not need a map. You did not need a compass. You needed something simpler and far more human. The decision to keep going in one direction instead of giving up control to the water. The data also showed that along the northern route, land often stayed visible the whole way, island to island like stepping stones, but the southern route was different. At some point near the final stretch, land disappeared completely. No island ahead, no island behind, just water and a direction you had chosen to trust. Think about that moment. You are not drifting anymore. You made a choice to keep paddling towards something you cannot see, hoping it is still there. But there is a problem even bigger than direction. Genetic models suggest that a single successful crossing was not enough. To create a population that could actually survive and grow on the other side, researchers estimate you would need a founding group of well over 1,000 people. Not a handful of brave explorers in one raft. Dozens of journeys, maybe hundreds. A sustained effort across many generations, not one lucky afternoon. That changes the entire picture. This was not an accident. This was not even one brave decision. This was a pattern, repeated by an entire society over and over, generation after generation, choosing again and again to enter water that had already taken people who never came back. Why would anyone keep doing that? That is the question no artifact can fully answer. There are three competing ideas. The first is hunger. As groups grew larger across Sunda, resources in already occupied land became harder to find. New generations were pushed toward the edges of the known world, searching for places without competition. This explains why the movement continued for generations instead of happening once. But it has a weakness. If you were simply searching for resources, why not just move to the next island in Wallacea, land you could already see, land that was already known? Why risk a crossing into complete nothing? The second idea is the sea itself. Some researchers believe these groups were drawn toward coastlines because of shellfish, crabs, and other marine food that was easy to gather and rich in energy. Living near the coast for generations would have meant learning the water, learning currents, learning how to build something that floats and survives waves. Without realizing it, that long relationship with the sea may have prepared them for the day they finally went further than anyone had gone before. This explains why it was us and not older human species who finally crossed. We had a deeper relationship with water and coastlines than any human ancestor before us, but evidence of organized fishing this far back is extremely thin, leaving a gap between the theory and the proof. The third idea is the hardest to measure and the most human of all: curiosity, and the status that came with it. Some researchers suggest that crossing into the unknown carried social weight. The ones who tried or who returned gained a place in the memory of the group, a name passed down, a story told at the fire. The fact that the population on the other side not only survived, but grew and spread quickly, suggests this was not a desperate accident, but something planned, something sustained on purpose. This idea fits something we see again and again throughout human history afterward: exploration, reputation, the need to know what is past the edge of the map. But it is, by its nature, the hardest idea to prove. No tool measures curiosity. Most researchers now believe it was not one single reason. It was hunger pushing people toward the coast, a long relationship with the sea giving them the skill, and the same curiosity that defines our species, finally pulling them toward a horizon with nothing visible beyond it. Maybe they crossed because they were starving. Maybe they crossed because the sea had already become part of who they were. Maybe they simply could not stand not knowing what was on the other side of that grey water. We will probably never know for certain. The rafts rotted away. The voices disappeared. Not one name survived, not one story told in their own words, but something more permanent than any object remains. The proof that they did it. 100 people, 1,000 people, generation after generation, climbing onto something that could float and paddling toward nothing, trusting that something on the other side would be worth the risk. That same decision, paddling toward the unknown with no guarantee of return, is the same decision that thousands of years later sent other humans across the Atlantic, across the Pacific, into the sky, off the surface of the only planet we had ever known. If this feels distant from your life, look closer. You have felt a version of this, standing at the edge of a decision with no way to see what is on the other side. A move to a new place, a job with no guarantee, a relationship with no certainty, a choice made simply because not knowing felt worse than the risk of finding out. That feeling did not start with you. It started on a beach 60,000 years ago, in front of water that had no name yet, with no proof that anything existed beyond it. And somebody decided to find out anyway. They were not primitive. They were not simple. They were not less brave, less curious, or less intelligent than you are right now. They were you. Maybe that is why standing at the edge of the sea still does something to you. Why the horizon pulls your eyes toward it even when there is nothing to see. Why some unexplainable part of you still wants to know what is on the other side, even with satellites already showing you the answer. That want is not new. It is 60,000 years old. It crossed an ocean with no boat that survived to prove it. No name, no story told in anyone's own words. And it is still inside you every time you look at water that has no visible end. If this journey changed the way you see the past, leave a like to support the channel. And if you're curious about how our ancestors really lived, don't stop here. Click the next documentary on your screen and continue exploring the strange past. Because every answer about our past only leads to an even stranger question.